Those who cooperate most fully with forgiveness are those who dance most freely in the beauty of redemption. Welcome back to Listen, Learn, Champion. I'm Natasha.
And I'm Madison.
And I'm so glad y'all are back. This is week 2. I'm pumped.
Me too.
Little recap. Last week we talked about making a U-turn in your life. I loved it. I hope you guys got something out of it and it served you well. But I feel like making a U-turn in life also comes with making forgiveness and having forgiveness for someone. So let's talk about it. What is the definition of forgiveness in the Bible? Do we have it?
Yes. So it's shown in Matthew 6:12. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Like God, to forgive someone means to no longer hold sin against the person who has sinned against you.
Love. We're also going to be in a book again this week. It's called Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lisa. I'm not even going to attempt to say her name. I don't know. Anyways, the author was going through a divorce and she wrote this book that also has a devotional with it. It's amazing. I love it. You should give it a read. When you do a quick Google search, it says that forgiveness is the intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger. Now, at the beginning of the episode, I said, those who cooperate most fully with forgiveness are those who dance most freely in the beauty of redemption. She continues to discuss that redemption is personal between you and God, and that God can redeem your life even if damaged human relationships don't come back together. So, hot topic, you can forgive someone and you don't have to still be talking.
Yeah.
You can just forgive them. It doesn't mean reconciliation. But how do you forgive someone? What does it mean to find freedom from giving? Say that 5 times really fast. Freedom from forgiving someone.
So just like I'm sure many of you, we've all been done wrong by somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we have done someone else wrong.
Yeah.
So we have had to initiate the act of forgiving someone. And we've also prompted someone else to have to act in forgiveness towards us.
Yeah.
And I remember what it was like to live with resentment. I had an experience freshman year of college. That's really the biggest one that I can think of. And friendship just gone wrong. It didn't make sense for us to continue to be friends.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff went down and I lived with resentment and honestly harsh thoughts, just a lot of anger built up inside of me for probably about a year. And I finally had to get to the point where I just had to let it go. We didn't have to continue to be friends because some relationships are toxic. And sometimes you realize that relationship doesn't need to continue, but recognizing maybe that person had hurt in their heart and their actions towards me were due to something that they had going on. Or maybe they just didn't like me, which is really hard for me to swallow. But forgiving that person for what they did to me and for the way they made me feel has made me feel so much better continuing on through life. And it continues to happen. But it's a weight lifted off of your shoulders.
So when you were finally able to forgive that person, how did you forgive yourself for holding on to all that resentment and walking out your new freedom of forgiving that person?
Honestly, I think about how often I mess up and how the Lord continues to forgive me. Yeah. And I started feeling sadness for them because I would hate that. I would hate for anyone to have the thoughts towards me that I started to feel towards this person, and no one deserves that.
Yeah.
So it was a slow progression, but I just tried to continue to live my life the way that the Lord has called us to. Yeah. And we don't talk, it's continued, we're muted on everything. There's no need for communication, but if I were to see this person in a social setting, I'd smile, I'd say hello, and then I'd continue on. You don't need to open back up the can of worms. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not the same.
No, but that's okay. But being able to smile and walk was a huge accomplishment, and then it just got easier and easier, and then I realized I didn't have any ill feelings towards this person any longer. And that's true forgiveness and true acceptance, is recognizing you don't have to reconcile that friendship or that relationship, whatever it may be, but knowing that you have peace and you're not carrying around this resentment, because that's a harsh feeling to carry for a long time.
To forgive someone, you have to let go of the right to demand that the one who hurt you pay you back.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's not your job. God will handle that. What you do get is when you forgive, you get the freedom to move on. C.S. Lewis wrote, "Everyone says forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive."
Yep.
And I read that and I literally loved it, because everyone walks different paths of life and everyone has to forgive people for different circumstances or problems. But forgiveness is both a choice and a process.
It is a process.
It is a process. Just like you said, it took you over a year.
Yeah.
It might take someone 20 years. I remember when I had to finally forgive someone that hurt me very deeply, it was every day I woke up and chose to forgive that person, even if I didn't want to. Some mornings were really hard. Some mornings I looked in the mirror and was like, why are you doing this? It's not worth it. But that was the enemy. It is worth it, even if you're angry. Like, I would literally pray and say, God, I cannot believe you're asking me to do this, but it says in the Bible you want me to forgive. I can't believe I'm doing this because this sucks.
I don't want to.
Yeah. Like, what is the point? But I'm telling you, it brings so much healing and freedom throughout the process when you do it mad and when you do it happy. Because at the end of the day, God already knows you're angry. So just tell him. If you aren't able to forgive, how could it possibly hold someone back?
You keep that guard up. And that's the whole point of this podcast in this episode specifically, is you don't have to forget it.
Yeah.
I learned qualities that I look for in friendships. And I recognized that our personalities just didn't mesh. What we were looking for in a friend was polar opposite, and that's okay. Yeah. So you don't have to forget how something made you feel to feel the peace of the forgiveness of moving forward.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But I guess, why do you think it took you so long to forgive that person?
Because I had never been hurt in that way before.
Okay.
Yeah. And a friendship breakup with someone that you were so incredibly close with is heartbreak.
Yeah, it's hard.
And a lot of people don't talk about it. And I related it to a relationship heartbreak.
Yeah.
You lived with this person, you shared so many close things with them, and then you worry, oh my goodness, well, now that we've broken up, this person's angry with me. Is there going to be retaliation? You just spiral through all of these things.
Listen, if you're not in college yet and you don't have a roommate, having a roommate is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. Freshman year.
I'm telling you right now, okay, I had one. All right. Little side note, I had a bougie apartment, or a bougie dorm, because I went to a newer school. So I went to Florida Gulf Coast University, which is in Fort Myers.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. But anyways, so when you walk in, it's a door and you have a little hallway and you have two bathrooms. So you have a bathroom that's just a toilet with a mirror, and then a bathroom that has a shower and another mirror. So my roommate and I, we each got our own bathroom, but we shared obviously the shower and the toilet. And then you had another door to each of your bedrooms. So we didn't have to look at each other. We got mad at each other. We could just close the door and have a break. So I had a bougie college experience, because most girls don't get to live that out. They literally have to look at their roommate every day, you know? And so my sister-in-law, she's in college right now, and she literally had to move out of her dorm room because her roommate was such a bully, and it was really bad. Yeah. Wow. So now she's by herself. Anyways, but it really,
situations are difficult.
It's really, really hard. You're living with someone who is completely new. Yeah. They have different habits than you. They've walked a different life than you.
Neither of us had siblings.
Yeah. No, I didn't have siblings. So I was by myself. I've never had to share space with someone.
So we're similar in that aspect. It was our first time.
And so I remember when we moved into an apartment with our other roommate, I would get mad at them for the way they did dishes.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't understand. Like, that's not how I do it. And I remember I had so much like anger towards them. And we fought a lot towards the end of my college like experience, because I graduated before them. And I moved my senior year to Tampa to do an internship. And so I remember my junior year, we just argued all the time. Mm-hmm. And we had so much anger towards each other. And I remember that when I moved to Tampa, I was like, I never like got why we argued so much. And I had to like forgive myself for like kind of being a pain in the butt, because honestly I was, and so were they. Like we lived with each other for so long that we were growing up together, it felt like. And so we were just taking it out on each other.
Yeah. And
so you can forgive yourself as much as you can forgive someone else.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to say in this ramble. But
no, it's a good ramble, because a lot of people might be relating. Same thing.
Yeah. And so if you feel like you're like in that situation, like give yourself grace. Like I really, like when I moved to Tampa, I did a lot of like, I don't want to say soul searching, but like I did, like
reflection.
I was like, wow, like I was growing up. I moved twice. My life changed. I like had like a mild eating disorder. Like it was a lot. Like I was starting a career. I had a full-time internship, a full-time job. It was a lot. So forgive yourself for like experiencing those things and taking it out on other people. It can even be like a parent. Like you take out your anger on your parent, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Like you just take your anger out on them because they're the closest ones to you.
Specifically for the college crowd, if anyone is watching this in college and you're in the transition from high school to college, you basically become an adult overnight.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your high school experience is. Maybe you have been an adult and on your own early on. But it's a big transition. You're going from living at home to living on your own with different people. You with one roommate, me with 5 others. There were 6 of us. It was an apartment style dorm. At UGA, it was HCV, if anyone's a Georgia student out there. But it was a big adjustment. So you were going through all of these emotions and adjustments. I was homesick. Yeah. No one else seemed to be homesick. And I was just a bundle of emotions and everything else. So give yourself some grace, but also give the others grace. And it might not be until you've moved out and you're reflecting on everything and thinking, wow, I should have had more grace towards that person.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, but you'll get through it. College is fun. And like you said in our last episode, is what you get out of it. Like, you know, anyways, we'll get back to the topic.
Yeah. That was a good rabbit hole.
Yeah. Anyway, so did I ask this? If you aren't able to forgive, how could it hold someone back?
Yeah, I don't know if I answered it completely though. It can just hold you back from, because you hold that resentment. Yeah. So until you forgive that person, we touched on it a little bit. It's you learn from those experiences and from that forgiveness, how you learn from it for the future. So it could hold you back from a new friendship, a new relationship, whatever it may be. If you don't find peace in that previous situation and in the forgiveness, then it could prevent you from future relationships or endeavors that might be beneficial to you.
Yeah. Something I would challenge you with too is if you feel like because you haven't forgiven that person and it's holding you back, is that your identity? Mm-hmm. So like, let's just say like Madison and I got in a fight and what she said really hurt me and I haven't forgiven her and I'm mad at her. Well, maybe what she said I'm holding on to as my identity and that's why I can't let it go. Mm-hmm. So figure it out, like find the root of it.
Why did it hurt you?
Yeah. There's a saying called forgive and forget. You can still forgive even if you can't forget, but you can't, let me say that again. You cannot allow the bitterness and resentment to hold you down. Instead, use it as a testimony of what you may have been through to help others and allow others to know that they aren't alone. So I'm just going to talk to a very I say a small group, but I feel like there's more people out there because it's a very silent thing. If you're living in abuse, a narcissistic household, whatever it may be, I'm not telling you to forget, but I'm telling you, you have to forgive them. You have to. I've lived it. I've walked it. It's hard. You have to wake up every single day and choose to forgive that person. It's hard. It took me 3 years and I'm still doing it because now I'm engaged to an amazing man who I love and we're planning a wedding. And I remember I watched my mother-in-law's wedding video and her dad was like, I'm not just saying this because you're my daughter, but you're the most beautiful bride I've ever married. I started sobbing because I will never experience that. But I have a father-in-law who adores me, a mother who adores me, a mother-in-law who adores me, who love me, and they fulfill that. But I cry more because I'm walking out a prayer that I never prayed for myself. I never dreamed of having in-laws that amazing or friends as amazing as I do who encourage me every day of who my identity is now, who is a child of the Lord. But I'm telling you that every day when it's the hardest, you still have to do it. You have to choose to forgive them. And you might go, oh yeah, I forgive them. And then something else pops up and it all comes back. Allow yourself grace, feel what you need to feel, but know that you've forgiven them. And if you have to for another week, choose to forgive them again, that's okay. It's an everyday choice and a process. Sometimes the process is easier once you've made the choice, but sometimes that choice comes back up because there's triggers in this world. But I just wanted to say that you can't let that be your identity, because at the end of the day, you are so much more than that. You have so much beauty, grace, poise for living that out and finding freedom. Walk in it and help other people.
And maybe you're not at the point where, say you do come from a broken household and you don't have the best relationship with your earthly father.
Or mother.
Or mother.
It can be either.
Guardian, whatever situation you grew up in. Before, if you haven't found, the person that you're going to marry, or maybe you don't have the best relationship with your future in-laws or potential in-laws. Yeah. Knowing that you have a heavenly Father. Yeah. That knows you.
Yeah. He will fill that void before anyone else will. Just let him.
Just let him. And just whenever you feel alone or lonely, just imagine yourself sitting at his feet and him wrapping his arms around you. Yeah. Because in those times where you feel the loneliest and whenever you're trying to go through that season of forgiveness to forgive someone that has hurt you, just know that he's there waiting for you to run to his arms so he can comfort you.
Yeah. At the end of the day, no matter what your void is, abuse, a friend hurt you, the only person that can fill that is God. You have to let him. It will take time because you're fighting yourself. You're fighting this inner battle, but he'll win. Just let him. Mm-hmm. When you had to forgive someone, what was that process like for you personally? I know there's the stages of grief, but did you ever feel like there were stages of forgiveness, grief?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. You had to grieve the loss of that friendship, someone that was continuously in my life. And it was a person that I was going to have to continue to see. Yeah. Weekly, monthly, almost daily. Wow. I won't go into too much detail, but we were in a position where we could run into each other every single day.
Oh my gosh.
So to either be walking down the hallway of my apartment, walking
to Black college feels really small after a while.
Y'all. It does. And you know what? I don't know if it was the Lord, but there were so many times that I would, be walking to class and just be thinking the entire way. I would make myself sick, worried if I was going to run into this person. Wow. And then I finally realized I can't live like this. Yeah. And the first stage was, I'm not going to let this person make me feel this way. I'm not going to feel trapped by this anger. Yeah. I was like,
anger. One.
Anger. Okay. Stage 1, anger. But here's the thing is you need to let yourself feel those feelings so you can let them go.
If you hold back those feelings, I don't think you actually work through it sometimes.
No, it's just like putting a cap on something. And never, like I said, the toothpaste is out of the tube. My dad always says the cow's out of the barn roaming the pasture.
Chickens on the loose.
They're from South Georgia. So I have all those, but there's your ism for the day. But you can't hide it.
Yeah.
So feel the feelings, realize it's time to move on, and then slowly you won't feel anything because you've already felt the feelings of anger towards them, accepted that you're not going to return back to that friendship, relationship, whatever it may be. And then you can feel peace. It's the weirdest thing, but
yeah,
I stopped being nervous to go anywhere.
Okay. So I looked up what the 5 stages of grief are, and it's anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Oh, sorry. It starts with denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I feel like that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like
denial is so true.
You can use that in forgiving someone. Like you're denying what happened. You're denying yourself that it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're angry at that person. Bargaining, you could be struggling to understand why they treated you that way, or, trying to reconcile, maybe, yeah. Like whatever. Depression can be you're just overwhelmed with the helplessness, whether you feel so alone, like no one has lived what you've lived through. Guess what? That's the enemy. I promise you someone's lived it. And then acceptance is exploring options, a new plan in place of moving on. And I feel like you can use that into forgiveness, because I remember I used to be so angry. Like I literally would be like, how dare you ask me to forgive someone? Like, you don't know what I went through. Well, that's a lie. Like, it's just a lie.
Yeah.
So I just, at the end of the day, like, he does know what it's like. He paid the ultimate price that I don't understand. He died on the cross. I could not fathom that. But if he can understand why he had to die on the cross, he can understand what we're going through.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not supposed to understand everything. That's where faith comes in. And, Jesus did what he was supposed to do for us. And if he can go through that, like, he can understand what you're going through.
He can handle it. We're not meant to handle all of it.
And we've talked about it in the last episode. You just have to give it to him. But you might feel alone and that God's silent. But silence is not proof that he's absent. He's still working. He can always see. He knows what's happening. But how do you know that you're not alone if you feel like God is not listening?
Because it starts working.
Okay. So what would you tell someone that was like, well, I just feel like he's not answering my prayers. It's not happening. I can't see what he's doing. What would you encourage them with?
I know it's hard. And a lot of times whenever you're in the closest proximity to the Lord is sometimes when you feel the most absent, because the enemy is real and we don't talk about it a lot. But sometimes when you're in your strongest phase of your walk with God, or you're in a strong season, the enemy's sitting over here like, shoot, I lost one. What can I do to mess it up?
Yeah.
Or how can I get in the way? This thing is starting to work. What can I do? To keep pushing through, if it's getting into the Bible and reading your favorite story of where it shows that he's faithful, or remembering another part of your testimony, or talking to one of your friends that build you up, say, don't you remember when he brought you through this? He'll do it again. And I think it's the hardest thing in the world to stay persistent, but you have to have faith, and faith is believing in what it's not seeing, it's believing and not seeing. So just know that you're going through a phase in your life, but it's not going to last forever.
I think too, once you've lived it out and you're now in your living of blessing, you start to notice all these things you prayed for and then more.
Oh yeah.
You're like, wow, I'm walking out my blessing, and then something happens and you're like, I never even asked for this. But I serve a God who is so imaginable and so creative that he knew I needed this, even though I didn't know I needed it. And when you start to appreciate the world and you see it through a heavenly perspective, everything kind of flips. You no longer see it as an earthly gift. You see it as a heavenly gift, and it has a different twang to it. In the book, it says, hardened hearts have such a propensity to get shattered. So I looked that word up, and it means it's more likely to. So when you have a hardened heart, it's more likely to get shattered. soft hearts don't as easily break. And I really like that because, you know, I used to have this thing that, oh, I have a hard heart, you can't hurt me mentality. And that's really not true, because the harder it is, sometimes the harder you fall, and it hurts more, and you take things more to heart because you're like, oh, well, that offended me, or that hurt my feelings. And when you have a soft heart, you can absorb what people are saying and work through it and, you know, talk to the Lord about it. Is there anything else you kind of want to say on forgiveness?
Just to reiterate, it is the most freeing thing. It might seem impossible. Yeah. It's okay to grieve the loss of a friendship, the loss of a relationship. You have to go through those stages. You have to let yourself heal. But living with that resentment, it can be debilitating.
Yeah. And I think as two engaged women, when you don't forgive someone, you will bring it into your relationship.
Absolutely.
And it can be so detrimental. I mean, they say it all the time of like, you know, heal. We'll get into that later. But just no matter what relationship, friendship, if you didn't forgive a friend, you can bring it into your next friendship. Like, and just, it's so freeing. It truly, truly is. But there's a Bible verse I want to end with. It's Matthew 18:21-22. At that point, Peter got up the nerve to ask, Master, how many times do I forgive a brother or sister who hurts me? 7? Jesus replied, 7? Hardly. Try 70 times 7. And the point of that verse is like, it does not matter how many times you have to forgive them. You have to, because we're all going to sin. We're all going to make mistakes. We might text our friend and it comes out the wrong way just because they're having a bad day. Like, I mean, it just doesn't, doesn't matter.
Your mindset is so powerful. And I think that's another thing you have to remember is when you talked about hardened hearts, your mindset, if you walk around with that, you know, macho attitude. No one can hurt me. Well, the second you let someone break through that hardened heart that you soften your heart to, and I pray this doesn't happen to you, but you get hurt from that. Yeah. You're setting, I'm sorry, this is tough love, but you're setting yourself up for failure before it even starts. And if you've been hurt by friends and you say, I'm done, I don't need friends. I have one, I don't need any more. But then someone comes along that the Lord has strategically put in your life, your mindset is already set up for failure. Yeah. So that's what forgiving, but not necessarily forgetting means. Not forgetting doesn't mean that you can harden your heart to others. Yeah. It should still be softened, because that's not true forgiveness. Yeah. If you're still hardened after it, then you haven't truly forgiven. And then your mind is setting up whatever else comes along next. Your mindset has already doomed that next opportunity. So just remember to keep an open mind.
On another perspective, if you have a friend that has a hardened heart, because I feel like this is so funny, I'm going to out myself, but Madison texted me and was like, I can't wait to see you. I'm going to give you the biggest hug ever. I know you're not a hugger. And like, I kind of was like, but I am a hugger. And I was like, Natasha, when have you ever like given her the opportunity to give you a hug? Like, you just are so like macho, like you can come off hard. Yeah. Yeah. But it honestly made me realize like, hey, you gotta like soften your hearts to your friends, because you can come off a little like harsh, which I can be like that. I know. But if you're the friend that has been through a lot and you have a hardened heart, I really just encourage you to like lean on those people and like kind of get out of your comfort zone, because you might think you are one way, but you really aren't. Like, you know, does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. Well, you might not always realize the impression. And I felt like I remembered you say like, I don't get super emotional. I'm not super affectionate. Yeah. And like, so in my mind, which even though I still hug her every time I see her, I don't care. You know, my best friend in the whole world, Taylor, she's like an avid side hugger, and I don't put up with that. I'm like, no, girl, give me the full on hug. I'm giving you a squeeze. Yeah. But because that's just how I am. I obviously respect others, but with her, I was like, I don't care. I'm giving you a big hug. I haven't seen you in a minute, you know.
And I think it's realizing that like as a friend, like you respect that they've been through a lot, and it takes them a little bit longer to warm up to you. And like, we've known each other for a long time, but our friendship, I think, has developed really fast. So it's been like a journey. She's my bridesmaid, so you know all the things. But it does take time. And so just if you are that person that's been through a lot, like I said, just soften that heart to allow those people that really truly love you to love you so that you can absorb that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get so caught up in that we're not lovable and that we're too hard to read and all this stuff. And like, it just, the more you're around that person, just, you know, and I think to communicate with your friends, like, hey, just give me some time. I'm really trying to like soften and like do all those things.
Communication is so big.
Yeah.
And sometimes if your friend has a hardened heart, recognize that it's for a reason, but show them that they don't need to be scared for you that they can allow you to love on them too, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes it's all about feeling like they have a safe space.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to end with this. Learn how to soften your hearts in 2024 to forgive and let go of the chains that may be holding you back. We'll see you next week. We got some surprises.
I know. Get ready.
Bye.
Bye.